Good afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to welcome each of you to our webinar series, Conversations with CORES. My name is Marie Walker. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at the CORE Network. A few quick reminders that, as always, you can find our information about our webinars and our other events on the Events tab on our website, which is corenetwork.org. And we'd also will be sharing any of the upcoming webinars on social media and also in our crew leader, which is our weekly newsletter that comes out every week. Couple of housekeeping, few reminders for you. Please make sure that you're on mute. We invite you to drop your questions over in the chat, and we'll get to them if we have time at the end. Captions are turned on. In your Zoom window, you should see an option in the lower toolbar to turn on captions, and you might need to click the three dots in order to enable that. The session will be recorded and posted on our website by tomorrow morning. Our communications team will work hard to make sure that that's done on time. In the morning, you can go to the Events tab, click Webinars, and then find this event. And please stick around for the end of today's session. We'll share a few important updates and reminders from the CORE Network. And also, when you get ready to close out of this webinar, there'll be a quick survey. Please go ahead and fill out that survey. It'll take you just a couple of seconds, just so we'll get some input. And we appreciate your input as to how things are going. Today's topic, we will define peer mentoring and discuss how your CORE can develop this practice. Specifically, we'll look at the role of peer mentoring and how that can play in developing a greater sense of community and belonging. As our presenters will talk about, social isolation is a major public health concern in the United States. Approximately half of the adults in this country report experiencing some type of loneliness, with some of the highest rates among the young people in our country. We hope that you leave this session with the knowledge of how CORE members can apply peer mentoring skills to their personal life and find a positive way to cope. We have an outstanding panel today to discuss this topic. I wish we could dive into their bios a little bit more detail, but let me give you just a quick snippet as to who is on our panel today. Dr. Christopher Saintville. Now, let me just take a pause and say, I know that name to some of you sounds very familiar, but there is no relationship. But we are glad that we have met up with Dr. Saintville. He is currently an associate professor at State University in Buffalo at the School of Social Work. Trained as both a researcher and evaluator, his work lies at the intersection of masculinity and victims of violent injury with a focus on trauma. He is currently conducting research around improving the impact of frontline community violence prevention workers. Our next presenter, you know her from Buffalo, Deidre Wright, who serves as the Program Director of the Environmental Justice Corps Workforce Development Program at the Buffalo Center for Health Equity. Among other accomplishments, she established the region as the first workforce development program in green stormwater infrastructure maintenance, with a curriculum focused on reducing socioeconomic gaps and barriers to employment. Deidre's work centers on addressing socioeconomic challenges and socio-emotional challenges while promoting community reconciliation and public health. I'm not for sure if he's joined us yet, Dr. Reverend Alfonso Wyatt. He may join us later on, so I will go ahead and introduce you to him if he happens to join us. But he is retired vice president of the Fund for the City of New York after serving the organization for over 2 decades. He is a founder of Strategic Destiny, Designing Futures Through Faith and Facts, which seeks to find common language and opportunities to collaborate between socially engaged practitioners motivated by faith and secular practitioners motivated by evidence-based learning. As an advisor and consultant, he is a youth developer and bringing a message of hope, empowerment, and preservation to those communities around the country. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Willie Thomas. Willie is a resident of the Bronx, where he works at Phipps Neighborhoods. He serves as program director and community and public safety, overseeing the Arches Transformative Mentoring Program, the Bronx Community Action Team, and the Phipps Neighborhood Public Health Corps. He previously worked closely with the U-Turn, which actually has a different acronym to it, but he worked with that program, serving thousands of at-risk youth in all of the boroughs in New York. And in a given year, Willie was the primary court advocate for 20+ youth. His success comes with the ability to embrace his role as a credible messenger and pay it forward. Now we're going to jump in to our panel and get started. But as we get started, what I would like to do is to focus on someone that you all know very well, Capri St. Ville. Capri, talk to us a little bit about what we're going through and what our nation is faced with now. And we're almost at a moment of all hands on deck. What are your thoughts on that as we open up?
Well, I see you put me on the spot, and I'm going to say and share a story that I shared with the group before. The first thing is that I'm pleased to almost be able to step into the shoes of Reverend Wyatt, who I've known for quite some time. But he had made the statement, and that we have to understand, and it's happened to us, and we keep getting this call to action. And we have to realize that now, like so many times in the past, we are at the point of the fierce urgency of now, and it has got to be all hands on deck. I had shared a story with the group that a few weeks ago I was at the farmers market in Baltimore, where it's not far away from where I live. And I'm standing behind some people, and it's a bunch of young people, like about between the ages of 10 and maybe 12, 13, and their parents. And we're at an awfully long light, waiting so that we can cross. And one of the young people started talking and saying to their parent that it seemed like people were just much nicer today at the farmers market. They were, saying, "Excuse me," and they just seemed to be very polite. And she said to her mother, and it completely just floored me when this young woman, who could not be any more than 12, maybe max, said, "Do you think people are feeling a sense of hope?" And I was like, that is something where we are at a point where a 10-year-old is looking through the lens of hope, or also looking through the lens, as Willie talked about, of despair. And it's something that we need to begin taking a look at and seeing what role we could play. So when they say all hands on deck also means, as Christopher St. Ville has pointed out to me several times, of how young people can come in and also assume a position, a role. It does not have to be just us. Because at this point, this was a 10-year-old that is willing to assume, let's say, and take on a position, a role. And we have to realize that we have a large group working with us, and that is the core members. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Capri. Willie, do you want to add? I know we were talking a little bit about this in the beginning when we were all getting ready for this. Do you want to add a little bit to that?
I think you're on mute.
Sure. I'll just say that it does take a village to raise a child, and more to that is that every generation get a call to action. Every generation, right, is called to stand up and be accounted for. And so, to Capri's point, it's not just the adults in the room, the elders in the room, or the elders that surround our young people. It's the young people themselves. Stand up, right? Be accounted for, right? You are being called. You are being called for a purpose. You are being called to do something meaningful and impactful for the generation that's going to come behind you. And that's what I would add to, right, this all hands on deck. You are part of that deck. And as elders, right, we need to nurture, right, wherever we locate that energy, we need to nurture it and move it forward.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you. So I'm going to pivot a little bit from that, and we'll come back to that in the end, but I'm going to pivot a little bit and go to the professor in the room, to Professor Saintville. Sorry, Capri. I know, but I'm talking to Christopher right now. But Chris, tell us your thoughts behind mentoring and deviating from that traditional type of model. I know that your work has taken you into some different realms. Can you explain to us what that looks like, what that is?
Yes, definitely. And I want to thank you for inviting me to this conversation. And I'm just happy to be on this panel with this esteemed, with everybody, all the other folks on this esteemed panel. But so when we think of mentoring, oftentimes we tend to think about traditional mentoring of an older adult who comes in and serves as this mentor to a younger person. Oftentimes it's an older adult. And then oftentimes we tend to look at the relationship as just looking at the outcomes that the young person is getting from the older adult. But more recently, you know, we're starting to look more at how younger people can serve as models, because when younger people serve as role models to other younger people, because of the closeness in age and because of the closeness in experience, there's more of a likelihood that a better relationship will develop. And because they're so much closer in age, the younger person has someone that they can model a lot closer to them than an adult would be, right? And then also, when we have an older adolescent who serves as a model to a younger child, what happens is it's not the one way positive outcome for the young child that we traditionally see in a traditional mentoring relationship. But because it's the mentor is young as well, that they're actually getting something out of it as well. So it's not just a one-way relationship from the mentor to the mentee, but it's a reciprocal relationship where this older adolescent is actually giving more of himself and then getting something in return for actually giving of themselves. So this reciprocity, we feel, is like at the base of trying to engage young people in becoming mentors to younger people, so that they can get the benefits as well. And then it actually develops this perfect ecosystem where you have sort of these older adolescents serving as socializers to the younger children.
Thank you, Chris. Deidre, I see you nodding your head in agreement with all this. What do you want to add to that?
Yes. So I'm so glad that Christopher introduced the ecosystem word, because I love it and I adopted it and embraced it. So, and I added to it. Now I call it the ecosystem of empowerment. So you heard it here first. So, and I love that because the members that I have had, the alums and the current participants, they don't realize that how they're becoming empowered to be a voice of their community. And they don't realize that they're becoming empowered to be stronger. And they don't realize that they have so many assets. You know, they think they're coming from a place of need. I need this program because I need to be better. I need this program because nothing else has worked. I need. But while they're there, they begin to understand, oh, so I actually have some stuff that I can share. And they start to be able to see how they build each other up, how they support each other, even in their trauma, which is even more amazing. So I have a young man in the program who, because of traumas in his past, he's very poor impulse control. He's always interrupting. He always feels like he needs to get the last word. He always feels like, even in the field, like he can't stay in his lane. He has to come over here and come over there. And in his mind, he's just trying to help. In his mind, he's just trying to impart wisdom because he knows so much. And his young 25 years. So as we work with him, as he sits with our care specialists, as we refer him to spaces where he can better understand, well, one, what you're doing is super annoying, but it's also a response to something that you need to work on. And as he works on those things and he understands, yeah, but I just want to help, but you can help from a healthy space. So as Christopher said, yes, you're the peer, but now you come from this community, you know and understand your neighbors and people that you probably already knew before you came into this program, but you're also healing yourself as you are supporting them. So I can't even think of what could be better. And that's why I say it's an ecosystem of empowerment, because he's growing and learning and developing. And at the same time, now he's really able to do what he said he wants to do, and that's to help his fellow coworkers and community.
Thanks, Deidre. Hope you all remember that, the ecosystem of empowerment, because there's going to be a test at the end of this. Remember, I baited you into taking the survey, so just be ready for that. But I see that the miracles of technology has brought into our space the Reverend Dr. Alfonso Wyatt has joined us. Dr. Wyatt, give us just your thoughts right off the top of your head about an all hands on deck, that this is a time and place and space where all of us have to come together and help each other out. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you, and I'm thankful that I was able to get here, and I want to thank Brother Thomas over there. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. All hands on deck. Well, I can't see everybody, so I won't ask it this way, but if you've ever been on a cruise, the last thing that you ever want to hear is all hands on deck. That's not about I had a table with the captain of the ship. I put in and reserved time to be in the spa. When it's all hands on deck, business as usual has become business unusual. And it calls for a response. And all of you, and I'm so glad to see all of these young folk, all of y'all are young to me, in terms of putting their hand to the plow in this ground. All hands on deck because communities are fractured. All hands on deck because the system is a rapacious beast that feeds on the hopes, the dreams of those. That's what keeps it going. I had a thought about getting some Starve the Beast t-shirts. What y'all are doing when it's all hands on deck, you taking the meal out of the mouth of the beast. I hope nobody's getting scared here, because the call is clear. There's not one person in the little boxes, whether seen or unseen, that has not questioned what is going on, or how could this happen? All hands on deck. When I say business, no more business as usual, because business has become unusual. No more big I's or little U's. No more I know you don't know. And therefore I will not go because you don't know. No, we've got to fuse what we know. We've got to share what we know. We cannot allow good to fight good when it comes to doing good. I got a whole story behind that, but I don't have time to tell it. What I'm going to tell you is that evil never fights evil when it comes to doing evil. Evil will collude with evil. Evil will encourage evil. And I'm finished after this. if I can do anthropomorphic manifestation where inanimate objects come alive, you know, in all them Hobbit movies, trees start walking and talking. That's what I'm talking about. If I could bring inanimate objects alive, if I brought crack and heroin alive, do you think they would fight one another? The conversation, if I could turn it up, amplify it, would go something like this. Heron will tell crack, let me jump on them. Let me jump on their family. Let me jump on that mother, that father, that son, that daughter, and I'll slow them up. And then when you get around to them, you're going to find out. They'll find out why they call you crack. Evil never fights evil when it comes to doing evil, but look at good. Look at good. Good will fight good when it comes to doing good. Good will hold good hostage so that it can't be good. If your good doesn't look like my good, then you may feel good by taking my good, turning it upside down, and shaking all of the goodness out of it. That can't happen during all hands on deck. I sit back and relax and regain my composure.
Wow. All right, Will, are you ready to follow that one? I know you can. I know you can.
Oh,
No one can. No one can.
that's my son over there. Go on, boy.
I'm going to jump in a little bit, Willie. I also want you, because something was said by Christopher, oh no, by Deirdre, in terms of seeing oneself as an asset. And I know that's something you certainly can. And it was something that struck me, just to let everyone know that Willie was also there for the New York City Justice Court. He was one of the directors at that time in bringing in the Archers program. And in the evaluation, they talked quite a bit about the change in the individuals when they saw themselves as assets within their communities. So I'm putting a lot on you.
Okay. Wow. Professor, doctor, mentor, Reverend, Alfonso White, that was the food that's needed to starve the beast. For all of us beast slayers. Capri, thank you for that. And also I think what Christopher, Deidre, and Alonso was getting at was each one teach one. Right? The concept of each one teach one, right? Young people could connect with other young people. And if they have the right frame of mind, right, and they share their experiences and what they learn from those experiences, they can help navigate their peers, right, away from no landmines to safe ground. In New York City, when the Archer program started some years ago, I think it's in its 10th year now, the concept of credible messengers came into play, right? A credible messenger, and what makes a person credible? You become credible when you are able to articulate with some integrity, some dignity, and respect, right? And share your live experiences with people who have come from similar backgrounds. And before the Archer program came about, and as Capri alluded to, there was a New York City Justice Corps. Right? And the New York City Justice Corps was like a program designed to reach young people who have had that involvement in the criminal justice system or criminal injustice system. Right? And have spent time in reformatories, right? City lock-ins, state lockups. And the whole idea was to get them to feel good about themselves, get their life back on track. Now, the beauty of that program that went on for 10 years was that caring adults and caring peers help navigate, right, young people who have went through that experience, right, back to some safe ground. And right, the community, and oftentimes young people are painted through the media as these creatures, but they're not creatures. They're not creatures by a long shot. These are just young people who need an opportunity, and sometimes they see a way out of no way, and they went the wrong way. The Just Core program, right? When young people that was in the program were doing the community benefit programs, right? Painting murals, right? Cleaning out backyards, right? Redecorating senior citizens centers, right? The community couldn't believe that these young people would sometime, right, people that spent 3, 4, 5 years in prison. And they started looking at them through a different lens. And when them young people start feeling the love from that community, they start feeling better about themselves. And everyone in that program, in this core program, just about everyone came with some type of experience. And when they were showing, right, oh no, this is how you do this. This is how you paint. This is how you lay down floor tile, right? This is how you use plant this garden, right? Right. They formed a bond, right, that was so strong, right? Even today, I have young people, right? And the program closed down maybe about 6 years ago now. Have young people that still stay in contact with me and share with me how that program, the core program, actually saved their life. And now they've been paying that forward with young people that they come in contact with. So I think I hope I addressed your question.
I think you did. Absolutely. But what I noticed while you were talking, if he could have jumped out of the screen and said something, Chris has something to add to that. Chris, I know you want to add to what Willie was talking about. Go ahead, Chris.
Exactly what Willie said, right? And I know he probably just omitted this, but he said they keep in touch with him, but I'm pretty sure a lot of them keep in touch with each other as well. And so when you think about the dearth of mental health services that we have in our communities, especially with the young people, the young folk, they tend to not have insurance. They tend to have other obstacles to being able to find an appropriate counselor or the right counselor. So this is where this whole peer model comes up, right? Like, how can we help the young people in the community be emotional supports to each other? And how can we help them learn how to talk to each other and learn how to talk things out and resolve conflict, and help each other resolve conflict, and how to help bring each other down, right? Especially when we're thinking about gun violence. Oftentimes the precursor to gun violence, is usually, an emotional response that's just out of control. And if somehow they can get to a peer that's able to apply strategies to help that person come down. And it's not going to be a counselor. It's going to be somebody in the community that they're going to bump into before they bump into any mental health professional. So how do we equip the young people in the community to have the basic skills to be able to help and diffuse certain situations, of course, the bystander interventions, but also on a one-to-one, helping individuals talk the issue out that they're going through that may end up leading to a very negative outcome, and then possibly mitigating that by simply being able to talk and be a voice and being able to hear out some folks when they're in a time of need.
All right, thanks, Chris. Deidre, I know that you can piggyback right onto this because your core has the mental health first aid training. Can you
Right.
elaborate on that and how you utilize that at your core in Buffalo?
So, yes, we are fortunate enough to have a few different agencies in the area, and it's free, which is great, to go through mental health first aid training. 1 year we used Erie County office, and another year we used a local nonprofit mental health or behavioral health organization called Best Self. Both of them were amazing. And I am very careful to vet anybody who comes to speak to our members. I'm like Mama Bear. I'm super protective because I want them to hear from people who they may not have to look like them, but they have to feel like them. And when they're done with the facilitator, we discuss it, we reflect. How did this person make you feel? Do you think they were talking at you, to you, or with you? And so now they know how to kind of reflect on what they just heard. So when they get that feedback, so at some point, Chris Saintville is going to come and he's going to speak to the members. When he leaves, I send them a Google form. What did you think? What did you know? What did you realize? What did you know before he started? What did you realize after he left? What would you change? So one, I get to know like kind of what they thought, how the person did, because it doesn't matter what I think. But two, now they're understanding how they can now reflect when they go beyond. So it's not about what's happening in this program. It's about once they leave me and they go somewhere, they can now reflect and ask those questions themselves. So yes, we have mental health first aid. We also do a whole thing on emotional intelligence, which is, I wish every person in the world could do that because it's how do you regulate and feel about yourself? Is my heart beating faster? Am I speaking faster? Am I being assertive? What is my body language doing? So we go into all of that. So if they can better understand how they're reacting and how they're getting through a situation, and now being able to look at what's happening on their outside and their social parameters, what's happening? Am I reading the room? So them being able to do that, that again helps them become a better asset. It gives them more strength in order to empower not only themselves, but someone else. De-escalation, that's another one. So all the things that Chris is talking about, that's the stuff I want to give them, one, for themselves, but they can't help themselves. Once they leave, they're like, man, I didn't know that. I need to tell such and such. So they use it with their children. So now you've got little people coming up, understanding de-escalation. You got little people coming up, how to first bring themselves down, how to bring their blood pressure down, mindfulness, and now how to teach that to somebody else. And they don't even realize they're doing it. That's the beauty of it. It's just, and that's where that hope comes from. So I love that question, like things are more hopeful. That's where the hope comes from, because they're understanding that they don't even realize they're already leaders because they have circles of influence, but now we're just giving them stuff that's already inside. We're just helping them hone that. So it's exciting and amazing to watch. It really is.
Okay. Chris,
D.
I
Walker,
want
I'm going to.
go ahead. Go
Can
ahead.
I jump in? I just want to make it clear also through Deirdre that the mental health, that is a certificate.
Yes.
Okay. That
Yes.
takes,
It is a
you said it's a
certificate
10, 12
program.
hour. Okay.
It's
That can be an asset on their
yes,
resume
yes.
also.
It's 2 8-hour days, and they give you a little card because, of course, you're not going to remember everything, but they give you like a cheat sheet card to how to assess what not to do. So don't try to go in trying to heal nobody. Who to call, why, when you don't, just step back. How to identify certain keywords, how to ask questions. Like if you think somebody is depressed and possibly suicidal, okay, this is what you're not going to do. But here's what you can do, and here's a number you can call, and that's a card they can keep in their wallet.
Okay. Chris, Willie, stay prepared because I'm coming to you next. But
Cool.
Chris, just real quick, off of what Deidre said, talking about core members, how would you go to her core of young people who come from all walks of life, who may be homeless, they all that run the gamut? What would your training look like for those core members?
Well, she already got it. She would just integrate me into there. And what she's doing is she's basically giving them social capital, giving them different skills for them to be able to take care of themselves and to help support their community. And then, so I think, everyone on the call, I think the biggest, well, all of this, for me, Capri and I met a couple of years ago because I was working with one of your programs in Maryland, where we were doing this work. So I got a paper on this, that we published with Adam Angel. So if y'all wanna, I could share it with you, Capri, the published paper. It's in social work. And then you know, the folk, if anybody wants it, you can forward it to them. But at the end of the day, you know, it's an important approach, and it's a youth empowerment approach to tap the young people that you're already working with, and then to use them as the change makers for the lower hanging fruit, right? So that frees you and your organization up to then work with the more serious issue that other youth may be experiencing. When you get other youth to be able to do some of the work that you do, it frees you up. And then another thing, exactly what Willie was saying, and exactly what our paper showed in the work that we did, the research that we did in Maryland, was that we personally didn't cream. We didn't use young men who were doing well and they were straight A's and they were already, you know, model students. We used young men that were kicked out of school, that were expelled, who had criminal charges, you know, and that they were involved in the Corps. And so in the Corps, they had received training, counseling, they had received counseling themselves to deal with their own anger. Then of course they had jobs where they worked with the Corps on environmental projects in the community. And then after that, they went and actually mentored with all of them were at least young adults, at least 18 years old. They went and mentored with middle school students. They mentored middle school, and the middle school students love them. But you know, of course, we know what the outcome is going to be for them. But the more important outcome was among the adolescents themselves. Like, these are street dudes. These wasn't kids in, you know, that, you know, straight A kids. These were street dudes who had criminal charges, who didn't really want to be there in the first place. And what they found was that when they gave it themselves, that they actually got a whole lot out of it. That they ended up caring more for the kids. It ended up reducing their idleness. They actually used the excuse to go mentor the young kids in the middle school as an excuse to get away from their friends, because sometimes when they didn't know how to tell their friends no, they could just be like, yo, I gotta go mentor these kids. And that was able to get them away from idleness, that was able to get them away from situations where they had, you know, a lot of responsibility to their friends. So, you know, it's incumbent on you, if you know, for those of you that are interested, to incorporate this approach in training young people to deliver services. And especially those, you know, who have a hard time getting into programs like Big Brothers and Big Sisters and being mentors because they have criminal backgrounds, and some of those programs will give them a chance. These guys that who want to give back, like that's the precursor right there. They want to do it. The fact that they want to do it is something that we want to be able to take advantage of. And of course, the ones who have a lot of credibility in their community, as Willie was talking about, credible messages, they go a long way in terms of being able to help, you know, young people, you know, achieve a new worldview, especially when they're coming up in the community and so many other people are teaching them the ways of the community, you know. So yeah, and so when possible, you want to kind of mix it up. You know, if you got good kids, that's what's up. You don't want all good kids, especially with the kids that we're thinking about. You definitely want to get those kids who have been challenged, who fell before and got back up, so they could tell other kids how to get back up. And then if you want to mix, you know, the kid that had a rough background with the kid that had a nice background, it might be a good mix, maybe. You know what I'm saying? You'd have to manage that room and around the kids and stuff. But other than that, it's a novel approach. It's an innovative approach. And like I said, you're knocking out two birds with one stone. It's reciprocal. You're doing a positive outcome for the young mentee as well as the mentor if they're an adolescent.
Deidre?
Yeah, I just wanted to say really quick, you mentioned mentoring to middle schoolers, maybe you said younger students. We took and I do have a mixed crew. I have some who have been incarcerated, who've been touched by the justice system, and then I have some who are like as square as the boxes as you see on your screen. And I love, love, love how they fit perfectly. That respect is I love to see it. But you know, all of us at some point, if we haven't seen Shark Tank on television, you've been to a pitch, whether it's a small business pitch or whatever. So we took them to a pitch of high school students who they were responsible for putting together a PowerPoint on the social determinants of health. And they were responsible for putting together a PowerPoint on chronic health conditions. And it was just to give them that experience, you know, just to get out in the community, see what's out there. They'd never been to that building before. They'd never seen anything like that before. And when we were leaving, the first question a few of them were saying was like, how come we can't do that? So sometimes I don't have anything in my head. I just let them lead. So now guess what I have to do? I have to find a professor. I have to talk to the person who facilitated that pitch. And then I have to figure out, okay, I got to get them together, and I don't have to figure out what they're going to talk about. They are going to figure out what they're going to talk about. They're going to sit with that professor. They're going to sit with the person who facilitated everything. And they're going to go right back up to that shiny building, downtown Buffalo, and they're going to have their own pitch. So sometimes, many times, you don't have to do the work of figure out anything. If you just be quiet and listen and ask a lot of questions, they will tell you what they need. And they might not even know what it is. No one came into the program saying, I want to learn how to pitch, because had they seen one even before, but they saw it and they're like, I want to do that. So they will lead you and guide you down the path of where you need to go and where they need to be, and where that empowerment will come from them.
All right, thanks to both you and to Chris. Willie, I told you I was coming back to you. So here we go. So you've been doing this work for a long time. Explain to us what you did back then to what you're doing today, and how have you seen that change?
Wow, wow, wow. So I'm going to take a line from our next president to be, Miss Harris. My values have not changed.
Ah,
My values have not changed. I always had this belief in young people. I was young I was once young myself. And what I try to do, or what I've always done with young people, is like, I try to give them a sense of purpose. Historically, young people have been involved in every great movement, right? When I asked them to identify some leaders, right? Even Jesus. Jesus was young, right? Martin Luther King was young, right? When they talk about Stokely Carmichael, they was young. They were college students, and I mean that's when they was introduced to mainstream America then, right? But before then, they was making movements so that they can become who they needed to become, and not just for themselves, but for this entire country. So I think I started with it from that premise, that you have value, right? You mean something not just to yourself. I ask people, I have this little practice I go through with them. I have them look up the meaning of their name. And when they look at the meaning of their name, I'm like, is that you? And they're like, yo, right? I didn't know my name had this type of meaning, and it fit me. I can wear this. And along the way, I always try to give them some life lessons. And they're not all mine. I borrow some of them. The 4 agreements: be impeccable to your word. Don't take things personal. Always do your best. I give them an example. Michael Jordan scored 55 points one time in a game against the New York Knicks. He was sick with the flu. And I asked him, did he do his best, or was he at his best? Right? He was sick, so he couldn't have been at his best, but he did his best. And that night, his best was 55 points, and he walked away with the W. Right? They won the game. Today, I just try to incorporate changing with the time, because the first law of nature is not self-preservation, but the first law of nature is everything must change. I try to include some new practices. The restoration circle, right? I mean, our young people are being assaulted on so many levels. Suicide up among young people. Mental health up amongst young people. Health issues, type 2 diabetes, obesity, asthma, all up, right? And not just in New York City, right? All across the country. So there's something that we need to help them restore, right? And so we sit in that restoration circle, right, to help each other restore. And again, institute the practice of each one teach one. Well, right, when this happened to me, this is what I did, and this was my outcome. There's great value in all of that. It's great value in giving young people their voice. I will never tell a young person to shut up. Right? No, speak your truth. Just understand, I might not agree with your truth, but I want to hear it. I want you to make me understand where that truth comes from. And the more and more that they recognize the value that they have, the better they feel about themselves. And the better they feel about themselves, right, they start looking at better options to pursue.
All right, I see him sitting back in his chair. I think he's gonna take at least a pause for the moment. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna pivot. I think we got a few minutes left. We're gonna pivot and to Reverend Wyatt, we're saving the best for last. So don't think that you've escaped anything. So we're coming back to you at the end. But we're gonna open this up for some questions. I think Asia and Emma may try to help watch for hands raised or questions asked, and we can talk to some of the panelists. Okay, if not, then I'm going to ask Chris. Chris, how many young people do you interact with during their term of service or whatever cohort is that you work with? How many people young people are you involved with?
It varies. It depends on how many programs I'm interacting with, right? So eventually I'm gonna go over to Deidre's program and I'm gonna be interacting with her. But I interact with a number of programs in the Buffalo area, various ages, you know, and most of the programs operate in some form or fashion where they provide some sort of training to the young person with the idea that they're going out to become a better socializer, a positive socializer to younger people.
Okay, great. I see a question in the chat, I think. I'm just going to read it the way it shows up. Everyone is necessary. Everyone has influence. How do you influence the system and institution you are in to show core members their power? Deidre, let's start with you.
Wow, you gave me a hard one.
That's an easy one.
How do I interact and show the systems, and then in turn show the members?
How do you influence the system and the institution that you are in, show core members their power?
So I give them assignments / homework. So one young man is interested in getting his CDL. We do not provide those services. So I say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to need you to do. You know that thing in your hand that you always have in your hand, and it's like a supercomputer? I need you to go and look up CDL courses in the area. So now I know where I want him to land. So I'll give him some direction. He's like, okay, this one looks good. I said, okay, you know, that looks good. Now, what you're going to have to do, and I coach him on what he needs to do when he calls, how he should introduce himself, introduce that he's in the program, let them know what kind of experience he has and what he's interested in, and see if he can set something up for all of us to go and find out about this CDL program. So, of course, he doesn't want to do it. He's super nervous, but one, for that institution, look at what's going to show up when we get there. Like that person has no idea you're about to see a bunch of brown people in their AmeriCorps gear with their bright high vis on. So that's one. Two, he's now had to interact with an institution that normally he would probably avoid, or he would be really nervous about making that phone call. So I do stuff like that all the time. So we went to the art gallery on Friday. I didn't set that up. I gave that job to somebody else. I just coached them on how to do it. So when we show up, of course, we're not always welcomed in the way that we should be. So, okay, so how do we react with that? When you're met with, whoa, who are all these people showing up? How do you react? Why did they react that way? So we have that conversation first, but then the way I react with that person sitting behind the desk who is a little put off by what she's seeing on the other side of the desk, they get to see how I interact and how I hold my space. Like, this space that I'm standing in is mine and I'm not moving. And this is who I am and this is how I'm showing up and we're here. And do you have a docent? Because we want somebody to show us around. So a little bit of attitude, but not too much, because at the end of the day, if you show too much, that verbal communication, that nonverbal communication, you'll have them wanting to feel like they're hiding up underneath the desk.
Yeah.
That's like one small thing that I do. I also let them know, again, like I said, I vet everybody and I let them know I'm creating a safe space for you so you can understand how to identify this opportunity. So whether it's somebody who looks like Chris or whether it's somebody who looks like Martha Stewart, this is how you show up. This is how you ask your questions. Don't back down for anything. And now Martha Stewart knows a little bit of something. And sometimes the people that look like Chris, half the time they learn something too. So I think that's how I impact the space that we're in.
Okay, that's great. Oh, we're running up on time. Chris, closing thoughts?
No, we need to push more to have young people into the fray in terms of delivering services, trying to figure out better ways to train them in all sorts of mental health modalities, even though they're not mental health counselors, but being able to train them in those modalities so that they can go out and apply those in their community and help deal with the mental health issues. I think it's a win-win for everybody, both for service providers and for young people, and we should try to probably we as professional providers should be trying to promote that a little bit more.
Okay. Willie.
Oh, there's so much I probably could say. I try to help young people find their voice and advocate for themselves. In that capacity, just last week, I took a group of young people to Washington, D.C. To advocate for youth employment opportunities with their elected officials. Right? Change starts with them. Right? And I tell young people all the time, right? The world doesn't belong to me, it belongs to you. Right? You have to shape it. And the only way you're going to shape it is you got to bring your collective power, your collective voices together, right? And let people know, let me know, let Deetra and Alfonso and Capri and Christopher and you, Marie, let us know what you want. And then, right, let us help get you there. And so, right, helping them find their voices, one of the ways I look to impact their lives and make the system acknowledge and see them, right? Just borrowing right, the exonerated five from right, with Yusuf Salam, right? Their documentary, How You See Us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Demonstrate how you want to be seen, right? And stand on that.
All right. Thank you. Capri, give us your closing thought.
Well, I'm over here furiously typing out because I love that statement that Willie just made. Demonstrate how you want to be seen. There's so much that is just so rich here that I've been taking my notes so that I could share with others. I think the most important thing, and I don't want to say the most important thing, I will say in answering one piece that Willie had stated about looking at your past and your present and the changes. I will say that I thankfully have two sons that challenge me 24/7. You know, I brought them up to be critical thinkers, and they've decided that that means to push back on just about everything that I say. But what is so good about it is that I have learned that it is important sometimes, as Deirdre has said, and this is still something that I have to fight myself from not doing, which is to listen and not feel that you need to lead, not feel that as the teacher, your responsibility is to do. That was the thing. I think if I look at the biggest life lesson for me is to realize that, as Willie said also, this is not, this is my world and not my world. I could beat out most people in terms of age here, but it is now our core members. This is their world. And as all of you have shown and presented, it is their, you know, their time. And as Willie has pointed out, we have to remember so many of our leaders were young. I think of Fred Hampton, young, young people, young, and that our core members need to begin realizing they have a voice. They just need to be encouraged and built, so, you know, assisted so they can march out here. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you, Capri. The Reverend Dr. Alfonso Wyatt, please close us out. Give us your parting thoughts. Take us to church if you want to. Give us what we need. But we got to hear you. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, that would help. Let me in 4 minutes just hit some points, and I'm gonna hit them quick. First, I am not
We have lost.
I love the fact. Can you hear me?
Kind of.
Yeah, I don't know why my internet is unstable.
All
What
right.
we have is an opportunity. The thing that I love about this group is that you are using an asset-rich approach with young people. The deficit systems that many of our families and many of our children must deal with, they're all based on something is wrong with you. An asset-rich approach, let me finish the thought. Something's wrong with you, and we're going to find out what it is, and we're going to fix it. An asset-rich approach is saying there are things that are right with you, and we are going to build on that so that you may be out there advocating for yourself. The fact that we have young people taking certification courses in mental health, and now they are injecting that language in their home, that's a good thing. The last thing that I want to say before this cuts off, and I think it's just going to cut off, I tell young people that I know how to speak acornese. If I had an acorn, I would take the acorn to the oak tree and tell the oak, and the oak tree would tell the acorn everything you are to become. You're looking at it. This is what's inside of you. And of course, the acorn says, how can something so big be in something so small? And then commanding the oak tree to talk. Everything that you are to become, it's already inside of you. You've got to act. You've got to relate. And you've got to structure your presentation to a young person. Not that you putting the oak tree in them. The oak tree is already inside of them. There's greatness inside of our young people. And how we are able, over the course of many decades, I've been blessed to be able to drop some seeds. And even if the ground wasn't fertile, I didn't curse the ground. I didn't look for more favorable ground. I learned how to do what I needed to do where I was sent to do. So, beloved, go forth, with strength and power, believe in the ability not just to change, you can change somebody, but right now in all hands on deck time, it's about transformation through information that leads to elevation. Deuces. I'm done.
you. Thank you so much, Reverend Wyatt. Also, a huge thank you to Chris and to Deidre and to Willie, and also to my friend Capri. Thank you for stepping in and filling in. You all will see the information here, the contact information for everyone who was on the panel. Please, there are a lot of dates coming up. Please go to our website to check for that, about the dates. Also, don't forget, there is a pop quiz test at the end. Please fill out your survey. And I just want to say to the panel once again, this has been so much fun for me. Thank you all so much. And to all of our members and to everyone across the country, have a good rest of your Tuesday. And remember that the Core Network, we're always here to help. Take care, everyone.